All right, so good morning. I wish you well this morning. You're moving into summertime. I know you're excited about the weather getting a little bit more friendly for everyone. It's beautiful here in Missouri in the Ozarks. So we've got a sunny day today. Today, we're going to be talking about project portfolio management. And so many of you this might be something you don't deal with. And I thought about that and I decided I wanted to go ahead and talk about this because we're going through some shifts in how we're funding some of our projects. And so some of you who might not be dealing with a lot of this right now might be down the road. And so I wanted to talk about some of the new stuff. Also at the end, I want to share with you one of the gifts that we're going to be giving away. So if you'll hang on till the very end, I'll talk to you a little bit about something that you can be part of if you can have those dates clear and kind of let you kind of see what we're talking about. So today we're talking about project portfolio management, maximizing return on investment with effective prioritization. So let me lay the foundation like this. Many organizations are looking at funding their projects. And so some of you are involved in this, I know. And so you're looking at funding your project and how to fund your project and how does the project deliver the return on investment at the end and the value that we want it to deliver once the project is finished. And so we get into this thing, and every culture is a little different, I know. We get into this thing of how much money and how do we fund our projects and which project should be the first and the most important for us. And so portfolio managers deal with this all the time. And so many times when we get it through some type of lineage, and we didn't get input into those areas. So let's take a look at a couple of things. So when we define portfolio management, project portfolio management, it's a strategic approach. It enables organizations to align projects with their overarching goals, ensuring optimal resource utilization and value delivery. And in today's fast-paced business environment, PPM, which is for your project portfolio management, helps select and manage projects that contribute significantly to the organization's success. And by focusing on the right projects, organizations achieve better outcomes. So here's what we're talking about. How can we take and decide what is the most important project for our organization? Now, many of you have been exposed to business cases and feasibility studies for years. And so this is not taking away from that. Those are actually tools that help feed this. But in many cases, we will actually do a business case or a feasibility study, and we will feed it in maybe to the PMO or maybe just to the management level, and they're running their project for their agency or their division. This, a lot of times, where PMI is kind of going with some of this, is a much more strategic position. So you'll notice, and you'll start picking up the verbiage as we start going through here, of how many times this is alignment. Alignment is going to be the verbiage you're going to hear. What they're really talking about as we start talking about this is that the project you and I are running should be able to have alignment literally all the way up to the strategic plan. And so that's the reason why you're doing projects, is to drive that strategic plan. So it's a little different than what some of you maybe verbalized, but that's absolutely where all of this is going. And so that's the reason why I thought this will be a great time for us to talk about this and see if this is of interest to some of you. All right, so here's some of the benefits of project portfolio management. So implementing it allows organizations to evaluate potential projects based on alignment with strategic objectives, potential return on investment, resource requirements. The systematic evaluation ensures that only projects with the highest value propositions are undertaken, and organizations can avoid the pitfalls of pursuing low value or misaligned projects. Maybe your organization is doing fine coming up with projects and people are proposing those projects. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the truth is that what is this doing? What is that project doing for your strategic plan? What is it doing for your return on investment? What is it doing for the value that you get out of that project? And so many times you'll notice that we do a business case and talk about the value or return on investment, and then at the end of the project, we do nothing. We don't measure whether that project really did anything or not. So one significant benefit of using portfolio management is the ability to prioritize your projects based on strategic importance. Now, sometimes folks will say, well, wait a second, we've got a lot of compliance projects at our organization, and I get it, and that is a strategic importance for you. You don't want to violate some type of compliance issue or compliance regulation, and so that is definitely a strategic issue. But that prioritization ensures critical projects receive the necessary attention. In other words, this is a number one project for us because of what it's going to bring in. This is a number 5 project for us. Now, all of you, many of you have heard me before, but the one that gets me, and I've heard it from probably some of you guys in the classroom, is what's the priority of the project? And we all hear all of them are number 1. Well, that's horrible. That's a horrible statement to say back to people, because that means that your team now doesn't have any better information they did before. Of course, we want them done. Of course, they're a priority. But here we're talking about based on finances and based on compliance with the organization's goals, objectives for that year, which is the number 1. And that's a whole different way of looking for some folks. So promoting that agility within an organization, and this is absolutely more important when we have economic times, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but when we have an economic downturn in the economy, this becomes even more important because you don't have enough money and you don't have enough resources. So now we really do need to be working on the number 1. So let's talk about balancing the project portfolio management. So you're achieving a balanced project portfolio involves managing a mix of projects that collectively support the organization's strategic objectives while optimizing resource utilization. Most of you don't have all of your employees working there as you maybe did in the past. You probably have open positions. We've talked about this in other webinars and seminars. And so I get it. We're all trying to run on a skeleton crew. But the challenge we get into with that first mindset is now we've got projects that are coming down that are happening as if we have a fully staffed resources. So now you've got projects putting pressure on people over here with a limited amount of resources, and they're having to work on these things. That's the reason why the benefit or the return on investment or the ranking order of those projects is so important. And we're wanting to look at those desperately to make sure we're working on the most important thing. So there's some challenges, though, with portfolio management. So let's start with the first one. Maybe your organization didn't tell you what the strategic alignment is. So you're kind of guessing. And so, we smile over that. And if that's not you, great. But there are people who don't have a clue about what's happening strategically for their organization. Maybe upper management keeps that in a small bubble and on an as need to know basis, and you don't need to know. So if that's you, then you're struggling with it of where the alignment is. But if your organization is doing something that's really innovative, they're pushing you to be able to drive these projects, not only for new opportunities and new products that's going to come out, but they're driving you also to be able to turn this thing around and create change in that organization that's going to make it more efficient, more profitable, and those type of things. So projects run all of those as well. The solution that we have here for no strategic alignment is establishing a clear project selection framework that aligns with business strategy, using the balanced scorecard, objectives, keys, and results to measure alignment, regularly review projects to ensure they contribute to the business objectives. All of this obviously requires engagement with management. All of this requires management to be willing to share some of these if it's been a closed communication kind of system. And so obviously it's going to take trust and some transparency from management and trust from the worker in building that trust with management. So it's going to be very important for these pieces. All right, so project prioritization. Many organizations struggle to prioritize projects effectively, leading to overburdened resources, underperforming projects. We sometimes set ourselves up for fail, not being critical, but I think many of you would agree with me. We do set ourselves up for failure because we've got so many projects and so few people internally. That's the reason why many of you are hiring contractors, but it's got its own set of stuff that we struggle with too. So let's stick with internal for a moment. So implementing some type of measurement for that project to help us understand how it ranks. I'm going to show you and just expose you to some theories. I'm probably going to overwhelm you with a bunch of theories here that's beyond what you need or want, okay? But I'll hit a bunch of theories for you to be able to research them and see which of the 2 or 3 of these really fit your industry the best. But you're trying to implement some type of scoring model. You know how it is to score when you're hiring a person. You want to give them a numerical score that one person was better than the other person, and you hired that person because of that score. You've got the same kind of scenario happening with your project. Why should I choose this project over this project? Both are important, no doubt about it, but this one's going to bring us return on investment opportunities better and faster than some of the others. And so a solution would be scoring method using some kind of weighted scoring, and just like what you do with a new hire, a new employee that you're trying to get, and you're reassessing these priorities. And that's the challenge, I think, because as you know, what you start off with in January, or if whatever your new term is for your new year, those priorities change. You get new leadership. The economy changes. You get new heads of those divisions or those agencies, and so the viewpoint is totally different. So what you started with might not be what you're ending up with in some of these situations, and so you're trying to reassess priorities, and you're hitting a moving target. Let's not play games. Let's be transparent here. You're hitting a moving target, and that moving target, if it's going great, then you're bringing on more projects and maybe hiring more people. If it's going bad, it doesn't look good. So you find yourself slowing everything back down. All right, so let's talk about inaccurate return on investment measurements. So let's make the assumption, whether it's an agile project or whether it's a traditional project, that we are all starting that project with a feasibility study and some type of business case. Now, you might not call it those, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. But the truth is that you have some document that says this project is going to bring us this type of opportunity or this type of value. So if you have inaccurate return on investment measurements, so if we invest $1 million, we're going to get $2 million at the end of 3 years, and that's inaccurate, then we're driving a project with the assumption that it's correct, but then you find out that's not even close. That's really way off. Then you're not going to have that back end value that you thought you would have. So there's several things, and these are all pretty standard that you've been exposed to at PMI. And so you're looking at net present value, internal rate of return, payback periods, all of the things that are pretty standard when you're talking about especially traditional projects with Project Management Institute. But there's far more theories out here that we can utilize that's going to benefit us in being able to measure what's happening with our projects. And like I said, I'm sure I'm going to overwhelm you with just saying, here's one in just a moment. But I wanted to expose you to a broad set of tools because sometimes I think all we're doing is using our hammer. We're using net present value and payback period and return on investment, and that's it. And yet there's several more that you have exposures to through Project Management Institute as well. All right, so resource allocation issues. So you only have a limited or a skeleton crew. Good people, but they're working on multiple projects. And so limited resources, whether it's based on financial or based on limited on the technical side, doesn't matter. The problem is that you have project delays because our people can't be everywhere at one time. And you've got SME, subject matter experts, that are very limited, and we're burning them out because we only have a handful of those folks, and they're having to be everywhere. And so if that kind of sounds the same in most of our situations, okay? So the solution would be implementing resource capacities, planning tools. In other words, what's the most that these folks are going to be able to handle at the same time? I can't just keep loading it on them with the hope that all these priorities are going to be able to get, to become part of their priority, and it's going to be able to be successful. It can't. I've overloaded them. I'm burning them out. There's not enough hours in the day. And in some cases, you'll even leverage outsourcing. And automation to help. And so that's fine. All of that can help. But the truth is you're still having to look at how fast those projects are coming. Work in progress is what you're looking at, how fast those projects are coming down the pipeline for that small nucleus of people that you're working with. So the other side of this is a lack of risk management. Now, risk, we kind of do it on a wing and a prayer sometimes, and so maybe you're different, so don't be offended, but we do it on a wing and a prayer a lot of times. We hope for the best, especially if we think the project's going to be really cool. And so what happens is that we roll it out, and we really didn't do a lot on risk management. Risk management is something that's having to be looked at for every one of these projects. This project has high opportunity. I bet you there's some high risk associated with it. So if it's got new products, I bet there's some high risk associated with those new products. So the solution when you're talking about this is going to be learning how to use your risk management tools. And I'm not talking about just calculating basic risk. I'm looking at risk for the organization or the risk if that opportunity is wrong. One of the things recently that a conversation that we have to have with our doctoral students, and I'm a doctoral chair if you've not heard me talk about this, was, okay, so you're getting ready to research this company. What if the company changes leadership in the middle of this that you've invested a year writing about, and the new leadership doesn't let you research them? And of course, we've had that happen with some of our doctoral candidates, and it's a terrible thing. They've invested a year and a half writing about that company, and now the company says, nope, we're not letting you in. We don't know what's going to happen with that. So what happens is that, of course, our thought is, go back to the doctoral candidate, their thought is, well, the company's already said yes, it's not going to be a problem. But the risk is it's not a problem if that leadership stays in place. If the leadership changes, new leadership, they see the risk differently. And so that's just what we're talking about. Your project looks great if everybody stays in place, but what happens if you change leadership? Is it something that they're going to pick up on? And maybe it will, but sometimes it's not. So we've got to look at the risk piece. All right, portfolio imbalance. A portfolio that is too risk heavy or too conservative may limit growth or expose the company to financial instability. So this is a balancing act. The solution when you look at this is diversify the portfolio with a mix of some high risk, high reward projects because you're trying to be innovative, and some low risk, stable projects that are just keeping the lights on, but it's a project that needs to be done. So using portfolio balancing techniques to spread investment wisely is what you're looking at. You can't run all these super risky projects. And so adjusting that portfolio is absolutely imperative for what you're doing. So ineffective change management is part of this. So resistance to change or poor adoption of new processes can hinder portfolio performance. The old way of doing portfolio management, which typically went through the CFO, might still be what your organization is doing. But what you're needing to do, there has to be some type of connection to understanding where this project ranks, not just that we're doing a project. If I've got 5 projects, I still need the pecking order of those 5, even though they might change in order throughout that year. So the solution when we're talking about change, because everything in PMI with the new PMP test, with your PMBOK 7, and probably we don't know that much about PMBOK 8 that's going to be coming out, but probably in this area is that people are using project management to drive change. And so that's throwing people off a little bit, but that's going to be your best tool to be able to drive any kind of change. So if we're wanting to drive change and drive it effectively where we communicate, we've got to be able to use it in some type of structure. And so whether you're doing traditional waterfall or agile or scrum, it doesn't matter. That structure is how it's going to shift for you. So one of the suggestions I would have for you here would be Kotter's change management model. Kotter is a super famous model, and if you've not read his books, Kotter was a professor at Harvard before he retired. It's a great read. It'll give you, even if you have years and years in change management, he'll give you some nuggets to chew on. But Kotter's change management is just one resource to kind of expose you to this. And then, of course, communicating the value of the portfolio improvements to all levels of the organization rather than keeping it all too close to us will help you in understanding this. So inconsistent governance, inconsistent control. So weak governance structures lead to a lack of accountability, inefficiencies, compliance issues. So what happens? We're not really doing much oversight of those projects. Some of them you're needing more oversight than others. And I'm not talking about micromanaging. Get that out of your head. You've got a great team. You've got great people. Let them work. Let them execute. But there does need to be that support there to where we're touching base with those teams. Even if I'm a PMO director or if I'm a portfolio manager, I need to touch base to make sure everybody's on target. And even though I'm not monitoring it necessarily day by day. So a PMO office is one of the logical spots there. But if you don't have a PMO, maybe management's having to do this. And you implement stage gate reviews for better oversight. As you know, stage gate reviews are just a review to touch base on how our spending's going compared to what we're achieving in the project. Doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out thing. It's just a checkup. And you know what? You want your checkups to be pretty doggone quick because you're wanting them executing, not attending another meeting, okay? And then using compliant frameworks. Like ISO 21504, which is for project portfolio management. So many of you who are ISO 9000 certified or whatever ISO you're certified, this is a reference point I wanted to give you about portfolio management. So there might be some standards and structure in that would help you that maybe you don't follow as much, or maybe you didn't when you set it up, but it would be beneficial to you. So inconsistent governance or control. We want people to know exactly how we're going to measure that project for success. Poor data visibility and reporting. Lack of real-time data, analytics hinder informed decision-making. Data is always going to be an issue for us. We'll see a little bit of this down the road, I think, with AI being a little more efficient than what we are physically or humanly trying to pull some of the data. So the solution is use project portfolio management software. And so I gave you just a list of some of the things that have come up in the seminars: Microsoft Project, Jira, Monday.com, some way of being able to manage that portfolio. Maybe you've got better resources than what I've even named. No problem. Implement dashboards, KPIs to track portfolio performance. And the dashboards have become standard. Most of you are using some type of dashboard, not only with your projects, but also with your programs. And so that's great. That's what you need to where you're measuring the right stuff that everybody needs to see. But you're trying to make sure that you get it as current as possible or as new as possible. So ensuring real-time reporting to enable proactive decision-making is going to be super important for this data. And so the whole issue of data is going to be coming back to, can we produce the data quickly? Can we get it out to the people to where they can see what's going on? And can management catch on that, hey, we've got a little hiccup here on this project and maybe they need some more support? Difficulty adapting to market changes. Now, we don't know what's going to be happening with our culture right now, or with our economy right now. And so we've got all kinds of sides on this. But however, regardless of what side we're on, we've got to be monitoring it for our organization. So organizations that cannot pivot in their project portfolio in response to market disruptions face financial loss. So if the economy starts going in a direction that's hurting your business or hurting your industry, this is going to make a difference here. A solution to this would be using some type of agile portfolio management to remain flexible so that you're hitting a moving target. But many of you are very anchored in the waterfall type. And so you're nervous about doing anything different. And that might be something for you to start exploring. Can we do a hybrid or an agile type of portfolio with some of these projects? You conduct quarterly strategy reviews to adapt to external changes. What's happening in the economy? How are we going to adapt? And then encourage continuous innovation, scenario planning. And we're going to talk about some of that a little bit later. But all of those are what you're looking at. How can we go after the opportunities and also keep it as low risk as we possibly can? Now, let's take you through some of the theories. Now, let me tell you, this is probably theory overload for you, but I'm going to hit them pretty quick for you here in this moment, okay? So there's some major theories and frameworks for project portfolio management. So if you're not real pleased with some of the stuff that you're tracking right now and looking at, do a little research on some of these other theories and see if they would fit your industry or your type of projects better. So let's get going. So strategic alignment theory. The theory emphasizes aligning projects within a portfolio to the organization's strategic goals, ensuring that every project contributes to the overall business success. All projects should have a component of this because we should be driving the strategic plan. However, this is very specific to strategic initiatives and strategic goals. So the key points for strategic alignment is going to be ensuring projects are chosen based on strategic value rather than individual merit. Helps organizations prioritize projects that drive competitive advantage and business growth, prevent misalignment of resources and efforts on projects that do not support business objectives. They use frameworks such as Balanced Scorecard. If you're not familiar with that, these were two authors out of Harvard who wrote a book on Balanced Scorecard for being able to track a lot of the components for operations. OKRs, which is objectives and key results for alignment, and enhances stakeholder engagement by linking project outcomes to business strategy. And so it's a marriage there. That's what you're wanting. Next one would be value maximization theory. This theory focuses on selecting and managing projects that maximize return on investment and value delivery for stakeholders. Some of you are not doing projects that necessarily bring you back or make you money. So you're not investing $1 million to get $2 million back, but you're investing $1 million to be able to benefit your constituents or to benefit your citizens or your population. Those of you who are running projects in the nonprofit realm know exactly what I'm talking about here. You're trying to add value, and so you're doing $1 million project so that it benefits this group of people. So your value is that it's ease of service, or it's going to work better, it's going to be more efficient, or it'll save us money, but it's not necessarily a return on investment that somebody is, you invest $1 million, get $3 million back. That's not how yours works. So a couple of points on this. This is going to include cost benefit analysis, value, net present value, internal rate of return. Those are all very common calculations that all of us have done on our projects. It helps businesses prioritize high value projects while eliminating low value or redundant projects. It encourages continuous evaluation of project performance to ensure value is being delivered. It considers both tangible, which is going to be the financial side, and intangible, which are going to be the brand value innovation. And many projects that we're working on maybe are leaning more on the intangible of brand value innovation benefits. And that's there's not anything wrong with that. So does that industry or does that company brand have a good name out here? You don't want anything to hurt that. If you were working for Mattel, you sure as heck wouldn't want anything to hurt Barbie and her name, because that's 80% of your profits come from Barbie alone. So that's what we're talking about. And then apply techniques like portfolio balancing to distribute resources optimally. That means you might hold off on a project that has a lot of commitments because these others happen to be more higher priority. And so you're going to do the other one that we're holding off on, but not right now. You're holding it off so you can get these others out the door. The next is called risk-return trade-off theory. This theory states that the project selection and management must balance potential risk with expected returns, ensuring a mix of high risk, high reward, and low risk, low reward projects. And so that's really what you find yourself getting into with risk. I've got to do this project, and it's a high risk, but it is a high reward. So you're looking at it through those eyes, knowing that if something goes wrong here, it could cost you some money to get it back on track. So a couple of points on this: use risk assessment models like the Monte Carlo simulation, decision tree analysis. Those help you be able to anticipate what some of those costs or percentages are going to be of investment. Categorizes projects into risk levels to diversify the portfolio effectively. This is a high risk, high return project. This is a high risk, low return project. You're probably not going to work on a lot of high risk, low return projects unless it's compliance or something else out here that's absolutely mandated for you. It helps organizations determine acceptable risk levels based on their risk appetite, encourages mitigation strategies such as contingency planning and risk adjustment. Funding, it ensures long-term sustainability by not overloading the portfolio with high-risk projects. So you're trying to have a balance of these projects are standard, these are high risk, and so we do monitor the high risk a little bit more. There's no apology for that. That's being a good portfolio manager. That's being a good director of the PMO. Of course we do. Doesn't mean we micromanage everybody, but it does mean we watch them. All right, the next one would be a resource-based view theory. I thought this was an interesting piece. This theory suggests that project portfolio success depends on effectively managing an organization's scarce resources: people, time, budget, and technology. Well, as we know, we have a lot of different directions that we can go in managing them. Here's some ideas with this. You focus on resource optimization by distributing available resources efficiently across projects. Use techniques like critical chain project management to prevent over-allocation. Helps identify capability gaps that might hinder successful project execution. It encourages the development of in-house competencies for sustained project success and aims to maximize resource utilization without overburdening the team. If you're not familiar with critical chain management has been a competitor of critical path. And critical path is what has been in PMBOK all these years. And so I know you know what that is. One of the main differences of critical chain and critical path typically follows, and it could be, there's many things, but the main thing that typically we see in a day-to-day usage of this is critical path typically puts contingency time into the activity links. And so we do it per activity. Critical chain does not typically do that. They will typically have an activity at the end of a path of activities, and it has all of the contingency there. And so what happens if I've got 20 days of contingency at the end of this path and we don't need it, we just drop this off and keep going. If I have to use 5 of them, I use 5 and then drop the other 15 off and keep going. That's one of the visual things that you will see. There's a few other things too, but it was used in the airplane industry for years, and it was looked at as kind of the alternative to critical path that all of us have been trained on through any of the PMBOKs. Adaptive portfolio management theory. The theory argues that project portfolios should be flexible, adaptable to changes in the business environment, technological advances, market shifts. And we're going to talk about those two in just a moment, technological advances and market shifts, because we are in the middle of it right now. The key points for something like this looks at it from the aspect of it encourages agile methodologies, continuous reevaluation of projects. That's one of the benefits. It brings in that lean portfolio management. Now we know the lean theories have become big in PMI. Of course, it's on the PMP test now, and so the lean mindset is something that we're all looking at, doing the least to achieve the results. Well, lean portfolio management is just another extension of that, coming from the top down. And so it allows for quick reprioritization, pivoting when the business needs shift, enhances innovation by incorporating emerging trends, disruptive technologies. It reduces waste investments in outdated or non-profitable projects. Now, the last one is difficult for us because you don't really, it's not like somebody's wanting to throw money away, but many times that investment, we think it's still profitable. We don't see it as outdated. We think it's going to continue to go. But yet, for whatever reason, it was outdated and we lost money on that, or it didn't work the way we thought it would. So that's what you're looking at with this theory. The next theory you're looking at is called decision science and optimization theory. Theory leverages mathematical and analytical models to optimize portfolio decision making. So you're going to have a lot of statistics and calculations typically in something like this. So definitely it's very much on the quantitative side. And this might fit exactly what you're wanting. Some of the characteristics of this is you're using an analytic hierarchy process and multi-criteria decision analysis for objective decision making. That means that we have taken the criteria of that project and we have given a weighted value on that of somewhere between 1 and 5 or 1 and 10, and that now we have a numerical number of why this project should be a higher project than others. It relies on data-driven insights rather than subjective opinions for portfolio planning. And so we shouldn't be doing it on subjective, but we do it on subjective quite often. And then it helps in scenario analysis to predict the best course of action under certain conditions. It supports automation of portfolio decision-making through AI and machine learning, and it minimizes biases in project selection, ensuring the best projects are chosen. Now notice the next to the last point here, supports automation of portfolio decision-making through AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. And so this is going to have an impact on us in the next 18 to 24 months if it's not already. You and I are going to have some artificial intelligence type projects, or you're at least going to explore some of it, and some of you are already exploring it. So I'm going to talk to that in just a moment here. The other piece is theory of constraints. Many of you have been exposed to this. This has been around a long time. And so this theory states that every project portfolio has a constraint or a bottleneck that limits its overall success, and focusing on resolving this constraint maximizes portfolio performance. And so one of the things that you'll notice here, well, here's some of your points. It identifies constraints like limited budget, skilled workforce, technology capacity, prioritizes resolving the most critical constraint to improve overall portfolio efficiency. It uses the 5 focusing steps such as identify, exploit, subordinate, evaluate, and repeat to manage the bottlenecks. And also, it prevents resource wastage for ensuring bottlenecks are continuously monitored and addressed. It helps set realistic project timelines and expectations. And so this is a theory that many people have really tapped into because it allows them to have some control over it, and they go through 4 or 5 steps, and they feel like they've got control over that project and over the constraints that are going to influence that project. And so that's one of the reasons why this is a very popular type of project. It also is the theory that the goal, the book that came out called The Goal was written on. And so this is why this is such a popular theory. Governance and control theory. This theory focuses on establishing strong governance mechanisms and control processes to ensure projects in a portfolio adherence to corporate policies, regulations, and quality standards. So here's some of the key points for this. It defines roles and responsibilities within the project governance framework, uses stage gates processes to assess project feasibility before approval, helps in risk mitigation by ensuring compliance with industry standards or regulations. It encourages transparency and accountability through reporting and auditing mechanisms. It prevents project scope creep by enforcing standardized approval and change control processes. Now you get the flavor on many of these. Many of these are very much heavy on the control, which is going to fit your traditional project management more because that's a command and control type of mechanism. And so many of these absolutely were created to support the waterfall approach. The thing that many of you might find yourself doing is researching one of these to see which one's going to support Scrum or Agile or Kanban or one of the other type of frameworks for projects that's different than waterfall. Sustainability and corporate social responsibility theory. This is an interesting one here. This theory integrates environmental, social and governance considerations into project portfolio management to ensure long-term sustainability. It encourages selection of projects that have positive environmental and social impacts. It uses sustainability criteria alongside financial metrics. In project evaluation, it helps organizations meet regulatory and ethical obligations while maintaining profitability. It balances short-term financial gains with long-term sustainability objectives. It supports ESG compliant reporting to stakeholders and investors. Now, one of the things I think that's important as you look at this, there are many organizations that their projects are environmental or social impact type of projects. They want to influence the society for the good, or at least the good they feel like it is. And so this is an important piece for people to be able to use. And many people are running these. So they might not be looking at a return on investment, but they're looking at the value of what does this do to the person's viewpoint about the environment or about the social situation that they're working with. And then organizational change and culture theory. This theory emphasizes that project portfolio success is largely dependent upon the organization's culture, change management capabilities, and leadership support. So most of us have some kind of belief system with this, even though we might like one of the others and use it as well. Some of the key points of organizational change and culture theory: it recognizes that resistance to change is a major barrier to project portfolio management implementation. And so using Kotter's change model to facilitate smooth transitions would be a benefit here. Encourages a culture of innovation, continuous improvement, and project selection. It encourages or ensures leadership buy-in to drive effective portfolio and execution, and provides training and development programs to enhance project management capabilities. Anything we do that creates major change through one of our projects is going to have conflict, and also it's changing the culture to some extent. Now, a lot of times when we do a project, we think of this one product that we're working with, but once again, anybody associated with that product, it will typically change the culture because it kind of dominoes into some of these others. And some of you are working on some projects that are just clear across the board. You're changing major stuff in the company or the industry. And so what happens is that's going to have a major change to that culture as well. Sometimes that's a piece of the project we didn't talk about that we're having to watch at this stage to make sure that we handle that piece of it as well. All right, so let's go a little further now that we've done with the theories in selecting and prioritizing portfolio management. So next, collect portfolio proposals. Now, we went in the direction of that many companies do, of where if you're wanting a project to happen this year, you write a proposal on this. And so this would be in place of the business case, or it could have the business case as part of it. You did business case, feasibility study, and a proposal, and it goes to the project board or upper management or whoever, okay? So that's kind of how we position this. So portfolio proposals allow for subject matter experts to present the scope, benefits, risk, challenges for a future slate of projects. Portfolio proposals use standard templates in this stage to help in evaluation and analysis. So you've got people proposing projects that's going to give new opportunities and reduce some risk, and maybe even realign the organization to be more efficient. You've got people proposing these. Many times this is upper management. Some organizations are not as formal as what I'm giving you here, but that's okay. It might be in just a discussion with upper management as they're talking about the projects that are going to be coming online, and it might not be to this point of research. That's fine. But if it is, then I want to make sure I included it. So you evaluate portfolio proposals on priority criteria. Criteria for evaluating a portfolio could be like those for project or program management, focusing on strategic and financial goals. And that's where it's going to be most of the time. Strategic, financial, or compliance goals, or safety. Safety might be in there too, which would be compliance under the compliance umbrella too. But strategic, what are we going to do? How are we going to look differently down the road than we are right now? And some of it is happening because of competition. For an example, do you think Google is looking at things a little different now that ChatGPT has become one of the dominant search engines that's out here? I bet it's changing how Google looks at everything. And so what happens is, because of competition, and in that case, new technology coming out, it changes how people are starting to use some of these things. So scoring criteria for portfolio management. I told you earlier that one of the things you'll do is create a score for your people. And so or a score for your projects. And so just like you would in hiring somebody, it's very similar to that in scoring your project. And so a couple of things that you would consider. So here would be a process for ranking some of these. This is it's not perfect in every situation, but something for you to think about. So you define the objectives of that project. You establish criteria and weights. And then you would score each portfolio. You'd calculate the weighted scores. You'd rank the portfolios, review and adjust, and select and implement. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to do this one time and one time only throughout the year. If your projects are stable and you fund them in January and then it lasts for the whole year, awesome. But probably you're hitting a moving target like all of us are. And so what happens, how you start off in January, you might find yourself in June doing a realignment of some of these, where this project is now going to be a higher priority than what we thought. And so now that changes the ranking order in that portfolio. That's okay. That's part of the success of management that we're looking at. So several ways of doing this. And so let me I tried to show you kind of the end result of what a PMO might have or a portfolio manager might have in funding some of the projects. So we took some of the categories that we've been talking about of strategic alignment, risk versus reward, resource utilization. Those have already shown up in previous slides. And we just kind of carried it across to where the portfolio manager or the director of PMO, people in those areas would have some type of ranking like this. So this table is focused on strategic, risk, and resource considerations. And so if you carry it all the way across, then you're looking at the description, you're looking at the weight, how we scored it. And so here we used a 1 to 5 scale. So you and your team were scoring these. And so it would tell you what projects were strategic, what projects did we bring in that was focused on the risk or reward, and what about resource utilization? Because we've only got so many people unless we're going to be hiring extra folks. So it just allows you in a matrix here to be able to scan this and to be able to look and see what's happening and talking with your management of all your major projects. The other piece of this would be if you're trying to balance governance and stakeholder considerations. So this would include also portfolio balance and diversification. And so what are you looking at here? Well, we're trying to balance it because I don't want everything to be high risk we're working on, but at the same time, we can't play it safe on everything 100%. We want it to be as low risk as possible, but some of the stuff is higher risk, higher return. So we've got to do some of those. Governance, compliance, those are pretty much no-brainers. Stakeholder satisfaction, we're trying to make sure our customers happy. Sustainability and other considerations. So ESG is going to be environment and social impact. You might be involved in some projects for something like this. Then the third piece here was just that of the ranking process should be based on balanced mix of qualitative, quantitative factors. And so the scoring of the proposals, and your scoring might be far more sophisticated than what I'm even showing you. But the point is you've got it down to a numerical number. And so what percentage of our category of strategic alignment projects do we have? And so here it was 20%. What about financial? Those that are going to have a powerful return on investment, net present value, somewhere around 20%, and then another 15%. So you got 35%. What about those for risk? Got 25%. Resource availability. Okay, so we got 10% on those because some of those are going to be resource heavy. And so it's just a way of you being able to, you've brought data to the table on how you're doing your projects rather than running it from our hip with a wing and a prayer. That's what you're trying to do with this. All right, so creating a mix of various portfolios. So let me give you a few ideas here. So like for an example, you might look at a strategic alignment and say, you know what, we've got process upgrade and AI implementation, and that's going to be from a strategic standpoint. So those are new opportunities, and so it means that we're going to have to take a look at it. It's going to take a lot of our resources and our money. So strategic should typically be one of the top ones. So let's show you another one. So financial impact, that's going to be a top one as well. We've got new product development. What's our new products that we're rolling out this year? Resource sustainability. What is it that we can do that's going to be able to keep our workers long term? You're wanting your workers to stay. You're not wanting to be caught up with new workers if you can and having to retrain them. Third would be risk. So risk of funding the portfolio, risk of not funding the portfolio. So you find yourself in dealing back and forth with risk and creating that variance. The next one is going to be resource availability. Resource sufficiency. Do we have enough resources and people have the right skills? Resource sustainability. Many organizations are looking at people who have wrong skills right now. They're looking at their technical, they're looking at their management staff, and they're thinking, where this organization's going, these people have not kept up. They have not reskilled. And there will be layoffs, not because they're bad people, but because they have chosen to stay dormant in those skills and not reskilled. The last one here is going to be regulatory and compliance. Data privacy and intelligence, we know that's a huge deal. And then safety, all of those are going to be pieces that we're trying to look at here. All right, so scoring the matrix of the portfolios, we've kind of talked about this, whether it's return on investment. This was a little different scoring matrix based on return on investment, a net present value, risk, complexity, resources, compliance. And we brought that all the way across just to give you some exposure of what one of those tables might look like. And then what can derail project portfolio priorities? So we're going to go and do a deep dive real quick into these. Strategic shifts can derail a project portfolio. Leadership change, financial challenges, talent shortages, competitive market pressures, unforeseen crisis, poor governance or decision making. These can derail anything we're trying to do this year because once again, your projects are driving a strategic objective. They're driving your strategic plan. And so if something goes wrong, then it's going to hurt us in those areas. So let me do a real quick deep dive into these real quick. So first off, let's talk about strategic shift. Businesses experience paradigm shifts due to new technology, global events, and crisis or organizational growth. New technology is what you need to be looking at probably right now, not counting away global events and crisis. If you're part of all of this with all the tariffs and the shipping and all of this, God bless you, because nobody knows what's going to happen here. We're holding our breath, hoping that all this stabilizes, but nobody knows. And so you're having to read into a lot of things. You're reading a lot of projections. Some will be right and some won't be worth anything. Organizational growth. Is your organization going to grow this year? Is it going to drop back? Because once again, you're looking at strategic shifts, and shifts are happening every newscast. We see it based on tariffs. We see it based on what the philosophies of all the various companies are. And so you're seeing it also internally. Is that going to have a ripple effect? I even had garage door motors replaced for my 2 garage doors. Okay. I had to wait because it was on a boat coming out of China for the rails that pull that door up. And so I had to go through the house and hit the button on the door and then raise my garage door and then go out and get my car and drive it into my garage. Well, I say really it was Wanda. I didn't get out of the car. She did. She had to run through the house and do it. But it didn't take but 2 weeks of doing that before I realized from her that wasn't going to last very long. So, but my point is that even something as simple as a garage door, you think, well, what impact could all of this have? And yet we're getting out of our car to get it in. I guess you had to be there. But anyway, I just want to mention that to you. All right, next, leadership. Leadership changes, turnover of executives. That's what we were talking about earlier. Mergers, acquisitions, organizations start struggling a little bit. Somebody buys them out. Early retirement. If somebody says, I'm tired of all this junk. I'm at that age. I'm good to go. Change in business strategy. If we're not making money, our strategy is going to change pretty quick. Financial challenges, funding cuts. If by chance we hit a bad economic time the last part of this year and the first part of next year, your projects will slow down. You already know that. Not as much money coming through. Some of your projects will slow down. Not all of them, but some. Economic downturn it affects us in project management, training. You look at cash flow issues, over budgeted projects. If we got a project that we've had budgeted and we thought it's one of the top ones we're doing and it's struggling and we're having to pump a little extra money into that, well, what happens? That money's not just sitting in a vault someplace. That money is coming from something else. And so your executives are having to decide, once again, the reprioritization of that project. So financial challenges, talent shortages. Critical skill gaps hurt the project. What are the skill gaps your people are going to need in the next 3 years? A piece of it is going to be AI. So competing internal priorities take the same resources. And so we're moving people around because this is a more important project. Burnout, fatigue derails the project. Small number of people, a lot of projects, and we've got them working like crazy. It's going to burn some of your people out, and some of them will change jobs just because of burnout. They won't complain. They're good people, but they're going to end up going someplace else because they're tired of all that pressure. And no matter what they do, there's always more to do. So there is no downtime for them. Competitive market pressures, industry disruptions. We're seeing that. Customer demand shifts. So the customer wants something different. New market opportunities. Did we invest in the new technologies? Did we invest in the new direction? New market threats. We see that. India is saying that they will take some of the work that China has been doing. You saw that on the news. But that doesn't, that, how long is that going to take? Is it going to take 3 years before they can beef everything up to take on some of the China? And so what's happening during that 3 year period? That's what we constantly are going back to with so much of these things. And then unforeseen crisis. This is assuming that everything's going well. And so economic uncertainty, supply chain disruptions, regulatory changes, cybersecurity threats. I mean, think about just from the cybersecurity threats. AI has so many negative things, but it has so many positive things. I told my class this week I was doing a Agile certified professional group, and I had several Ukrainian project managers in there, and then I had a couple of ladies that were here in Missouri that was in there taking their ACP. And I told them, I said, I've got to be the luckiest person in the world, because last month I won $6 million from Publishers Clearinghouse, and the next week I won $7 million, and the next week I won 9.5 plus a Lincoln. And if I was just willing to pay the tax on all of those, I would have had that check. They're not going to send you that check if you don't pay the tax on it. And I started cracking up, because think about how crazy that is. So cybersecurity, I mean, we're being pitched everything in the world about why they, how we've won, what's happening. Everybody's trying to get to us and get our information. All right. Poor governance, decision making. So we do miss it sometimes. Making decisions, change the ranking, expanding the goals, objectives, all that can be very important. Disagreement between leadership. You find leaders going in different directions, and when bad economic times come, or economic times for our industry or our company comes, then you'll have leadership who thinks that they need to go in one direction compared to another, and they'll have disagreements over that. Or lack of stability for the organization. The organization's struggling because of some of these. So a lot of these different pieces are going to make a difference on the projects. Finance obviously is going to. So let me talk about some things. So don't go anywhere yet, because I've got something free I want to mention to you. You're my last group that I'm mentioning this to. So next month, we're going to be doing the webinar on building the proper foundation for artificial intelligence in the organization. Now, if you are not getting our newsletter, in our newsletter, we started in January with an additional newsletter called AI Simplified. And so we have been writing and researching, giving you information about artificial intelligence. And so it comes out every month. It's on PDF for you and your team to be able to read. So this is every month you're getting something new. And so this is to help you be able to start seeing and learning a little bit about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is one of the things that's probably driving a lot of the decisions with right now, but it's even going to drive more within the next 2 years. So that's going to be our webinar next month for 1 hour. But here's what I'm wanting to show you. We have made a decision. We have a class starting at the end of this month, May 21 and 22. This is going to be virtual. It's a 2-day in-person virtual right here. And then it's a 1-day self-paced. So you actually have 3 days, and the self-paced you can do over the next 10 days. But it's 3 days of PDUs for 19.5. We had it for $300 a person, and we pulled that, and we are now giving this as a customer appreciation seminar. And so we're going to be taking it down literally in a couple of days. We have 70 companies that have already signed up for this. And so if you want to be in this, it's unleashing the potential of artificial intelligence and advanced prompt engineering in project management. If you want to be in this, I'm going to teach it for 2 days. It's a lot of fun. You're going to have hands-on. You're going to be working in teams. You're going to be trying out prompts on all these different tools. And we're going to talk about it from the aspect of project management. But the tools that you're using and the skills that you're picking up are going to be skills that you can do it with anything associated with AI. And so we're giving that to our clients at 32 years of business. Thank you so much for using us and running your people through our PMP and all of those type of things. And some of you are calling me right now. So, so thank you so much for working with us for all these years. But we'd love to have you, but this is not going to stay up much longer. So you're my last public group that I'm announcing it. We've just announced it in the last 2 weeks, and we're just about full with everybody. So you want to get signed up, you want to get signed up immediately, because once we take it down, nobody else will be allowed to be in. And so that's where it will stop. But anyway, May 21, 22, it'll be something like an 8 to 5 kind of thing as to where we'll go through it. And it's going to be hands-on through the entire thing. And then the last thing is we still have one more mastermind group. Those of you who have gone through mastermind helps your people start filling out their application, understanding a little bit more of the content associated with the PMP. And then every mastermind group that we have, we give away one free boot camp. And so that person comes to the boot camp on us, and that gives them an opportunity to be able to get their PMP, and they didn't have to pay for it. They can go through they'll pay for their test, but they will not pay for the boot camp. And so they get their boot camp free. So we have one more mastermind group. We're finishing up one today. And so that group will be, somebody will be getting a free boot camp drawing later this afternoon, and so that will be out. But anyway, this doesn't cost them anything. It takes less than an hour a day for 5 days, and it's free, and it helps them be able to understand and fill out their application. They ask questions. I do videos. I do 2 calls. I'll do a call today even right at 11:30, I think it is, after I get done with you guys. So just allows you to answer some questions so that you're there and you understand what's going on. Here's our virtual boot camps for the end of the year. We do them every other month: June, August, October, December. All of this is new material since 2022. All of this is new material even through the tweaks that they've done since 2022. It's PMI material. All your people will have electronic version of that material, and they'll go through it. We're doing a 97% first-time passing rate right now. PMI says 60% is the average person will pass. 97% is what we're running on this. So if you want your people to be in this, we're doing it all virtual so they can be anywhere in the world going through this for sure. And then if you need anything, don't hesitate to send me an email or contact me. It has just been, it's been great making friends, because not clients, it's really friends. And so I appreciate so much of you being willing to get on here and be part of this. And I hope it brings some value to you. Now, this video will process for a little while, and then Kim will get it up later today. And so you'll be able to go back if you need some of it, or you need to show some of it to some of your people. Okay. So we're getting close to the end. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great week. And so hopefully I'll see you down the road here. So God bless you guys. Thank you so much for being part of the calling today. Okay. Bye, everybody. Take care.